他人から自由を奪われるくらいなら、俺はそいつから自由を奪う。
These aren't the words of a villain. These are the words of someone who was born into a cage and spent his entire life trying to break free, only to discover that freedom itself might be the cruelest cage of all. Eren Yeager saw his mother eaten alive by a titan when he was 9 years old. He watched her reach out to him begging for help before she was crushed and devoured. And in that moment, something inside Eren broke, or perhaps was forged. From that day forward, Eren had one goal: freedom. Freedom from the walls that imprisoned humanity. Freedom from the titans that hunted them. Freedom from anyone who would dare to take his choices away. But by the end of his story, Eren Yeager would become the greatest threat humanity had ever known. He would kill billions of innocent people. He would betray everyone who loved him. He would commit genocide on a scale that makes every other atrocity in history pale in comparison. And when asked why he did it, his answer was haunting. I don't know. I just had to. This is the philosophy of Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan, a story about the paradox of freedom, the tragedy of determinism, and what happens when the pursuit of liberty becomes indistinguishable from tyranny. To understand Eren Yeager, you must first understand what it means to live in a cage. Humanity in Attack on Titan exists behind 3 massive walls: Wall Maria, Wall Rose, and Wall Cena. For over 100 years, these walls have protected humanity from titans, mindless giant humanoid creatures that exist only to devour humans. The walls are safety. The walls are civilization. The walls are all that stands between humanity and extinction. But to Eren, the walls are a prison. While everyone else accepts this reality, grateful just to be alive, content to live their entire lives, never knowing what exists beyond the walls, Eren is different. He doesn't accept it. He can't accept it. Why? Because Eren was born with something that most people don't have: an innate, uncompromising desire for freedom that borders on obsession. Even as a child, before the Titans attacked, Eren would argue with anyone who suggested that living behind the walls was acceptable. He'd say things like, "Humanity has stopped moving forward. We're just cattle, waiting to be slaughtered." His friends thought he was reckless. His family thought he was naive. But Eren saw something they didn't. To accept the walls is to accept being caged. And to accept being caged is to give up your humanity. This is the core of Eren's philosophy even before his journey begins. Freedom is non-negotiable. And then, everything changed. The colossal titan appeared, a titan so large it towered over the 50-meter wall and kicked a hole in Wall Maria. Titans flooded into the district. People were eaten alive. Chaos erupted, and Eren, hiding with his mother Carla, who was trapped under debris, watched as a titan reached down, picked up his mother, and crushed her, ate her, while Eren screamed her name. This moment is crucial because it's not just about trauma, though it certainly is traumatic. It's about what this moment crystallizes in Eren's mind. Before this, Eren's desire for freedom was abstract, philosophical, a vague yearning for something beyond the walls. But now, freedom has a face, and that face is revenge. Eren doesn't just want to be free anymore. He wants to eradicate every single titan from existence. He wants to kill them all, every last one, until humanity can finally live without fear, without walls, without cages. This is where Eren's journey begins, with hatred, with trauma, and with a promise to fight. Eren joins the military. He trains to fight titans. And during his first real battle, when he's supposed to prove himself, he's eaten by a titan. Everyone thinks he's dead. But then, something impossible happens. A new titan appears, and it starts killing other titans. This titan is different. It's aggressive, strategic, and seems to have a purpose. And when it finally collapses, Eren Yeager emerges from its nape, unconscious but alive. Eren is a titan shifter. He has the ability to transform into a 15-meter titan while retaining his human consciousness. This power makes him humanity's greatest weapon, the first real hope they've had in a century. But it also makes him something else, a tool. The military wants to use him. The government fears him. Political factions see him as a means to power. And Eren, who joined the military to fight for freedom, realizes he's trapped in yet another cage. The cage of being seen as a weapon rather than a person. But Eren has the power now, and he's going to use it. As Eren fights alongside the Survey Corps, humanity's elite soldiers who venture beyond the walls, he slowly uncovers a truth that shatters everything he thought he knew. The Titans aren't just monsters, they're humans. Every Titan was once a person. They were transformed against their will by a nation called Marley and sent to Paradise Island, where Eren's people live, as weapons of war and punishment. And more devastating, Eren's people, the Eldians, are considered devils by the rest of the world. For centuries, Eldians ruled the world through the power of the Titans, committing atrocities and oppressing other nations. Now, the Eldians on Paradise Island are the last remnants of that empire, trapped behind walls, ignorant of their own history, hated by the entire world. Eren learns that his mother wasn't killed by some mindless force of nature. She was killed by a human who was transformed into a Titan as punishment by Marley. The enemy isn't the Titans. The enemy is the world itself. And the walls? They weren't built to protect humanity from Titans. They were built by the founding Titan, the most powerful of all Titans, to imprison Eldians on Paradise Island, isolated from the rest of the world that wanted them dead. Eren thought he was fighting for freedom, but he was just a pawn in a conflict that had been raging for thousands of years. At the heart of Attack on Titan and at the heart of Eren Yeager is one question. What does it mean to be free? For most people, freedom means having choices, the ability to decide your own path, autonomy. But for Eren, freedom is something more absolute, more radical. Eren's freedom is the freedom to exist without constraint, without walls, without enemies, without anyone who would dare to threaten his right to live as he chooses. This is why Eren's catchphrase is so revealing. If someone tries to take my freedom away, I won't hesitate to take theirs. This isn't self-defense. This is a philosophy of preemptive elimination. Eren doesn't just want to protect his freedom. He wants to eradicate anything that could threaten it. And this is where Eren's philosophy becomes dangerous. Eren's worldview aligns closely with Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of the will to power. Nietzsche argued that the fundamental driving force of human beings isn't survival or pleasure. It's the will to assert oneself, to overcome obstacles, to dominate one's circumstances. Eren embodies this completely. From childhood, he's been driven by an insatiable need to fight, to win, to refuse to accept limitation. When his friends suggest retreat, Eren pushes forward. When authority tells him to stand down, Eren rebels. When fate itself seems to demand his submission, Eren keeps moving forward. This phrase, keep moving forward, becomes Eren's mantra. No matter the cost, no matter the consequences, no matter how much blood is spilled, keep moving forward. But here's the problem. What happens when moving forward means destroying everything in your path? And this brings us to the most philosophical aspect of Eren's character, the paradox of determinism and free will. Eren inherits the Attack Titan, which has a unique ability. It can see memories from future inheritors. This means that Eren can see the future, not possibilities. The future. What will happen, what he will do, and what he sees is horrifying. He will activate the rumbling. The rumbling is the ultimate weapon of the founding Titan. It releases millions of colossal Titans, each the size of a skyscraper, from the walls and sends them marching across the world, trampling everything in their path. Eren will kill billions of people. But here's the paradox. Did Eren choose to do this, or was he always going to? If Eren saw the future and knew he would activate the rumbling, did he have free will? Or was he simply fulfilling a destiny he couldn't escape? Eren himself doesn't seem to know the answer. In his final conversation with Armin, he admits, I don't know why I did it. Even if I didn't know that you all would stop me in the end, I still would have flattened this earth. I wanted to. I had to. I don't know why. I just had to. This is one of the most philosophically devastating lines in all of anime. Eren committed genocide, the greatest crime imaginable, and he doesn't even fully understand why. Was it for freedom? Was it for his friends? Was it because he was a slave to his own nature, a slave to freedom? After learning the truth about the world, Eren embarks on a covert mission to Marley, the nation that has oppressed Eldians for centuries. He sees how Eldians live there, in ghettos, forced to wear armbands, treated as subhuman, used as weapons of war. He sees families torn apart, children indoctrinated to hate themselves for being born Eldian. And Eren also learns about the fate awaiting Paradise Island. The entire world has agreed that Paradise must be destroyed. There will be a global alliance, warships, airplanes, modern military technology that Paradise has no defense against. Within a few years, every person on Paradise Island, everyone Eren has ever known, will be exterminated. The world wants his people dead simply for existing. And so Eren makes a choice. He will activate the rumbling. He will release the millions of colossal Titans trapped in the walls. And he will use them to flatten the entire world outside of Paradise Island. Not just Marley, not just the military, everyone, every man, woman, and child, every city, village, and settlement. He will trample them all beneath the feet of colossal titans until nothing remains. This is Eren's solution to the problem of freedom: eliminate everyone who could ever threaten it. To accomplish this, Eren must betray everyone. He lies to his friends, Mikasa, Armin, and the people who fought beside him for years, and manipulates them into believing he's working toward a more limited goal. He infiltrates Marley and orchestrates a terrorist attack during an international summit, killing civilians and political leaders indiscriminately. He gains control of the founding Titan, the godlike power that controls all Titans, by manipulating Zeke, his own half-brother. And then, when his friends realize what he's truly planning and try to stop him, Eren tells them, "I'm free. Not, I'm doing this for you. Not, I have no choice. Not, forgive me. I'm free." Because in Eren's mind, this is what freedom looks like: the power to reshape the world according to his will, regardless of who suffers. Let's be clear, the rumbling is not presented as morally justifiable within the story. Eren kills an estimated 80% of humanity, billions of people, men, women, children, infants, all crushed beneath colossal titans. We see the horror explicitly. We see refugees fleeing. We see families trampled. We see the devastation from the perspective of the innocent people Eren is slaughtering. Attack on Titan does not glorify Eren's actions. It shows them for what they are: genocide on an unfathomable scale. And yet, the story also refuses to present Eren as a simple villain. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: Eren's fears were real. The world genuinely did want to exterminate Paradise Island. There were no diplomatic solutions on the table, no path to peace. The global alliance was already forming, and Paradise had no way to defend itself against modern weaponry. If Eren did nothing, everyone he loved would die. This is the moral catastrophe at the heart of the attack on Titan. Eren isn't wrong about the threat, he's only wrong about the response. But is there a right response when the entire world wants you dead? And this brings us to the ultimate paradox of Eren Yeager. In his pursuit of absolute freedom, he became a slave. Eren's entire identity is built around rejecting control. He refuses to be caged. He refuses to submit. He refuses to accept any limitation on his autonomy. But in doing so, he becomes enslaved to his own ideology. He must activate the rumbling, not because someone forces him, but because his conception of freedom demands it. He must betray his friends, not because he wants to, but because moving forward means leaving them behind. He must commit genocide, not because he enjoys it, but because eliminating all threats is the only way to secure absolute freedom. Eren is a slave to freedom itself. This is what the story means when it calls Eren a slave to freedom. His obsession with liberty, his refusal to accept any compromise, any coexistence with potential enemies, traps him in a path he can't deviate from. He saw the future. He saw himself activating the rumbling, and because he saw it, he believed he had to do it. Did he choose this, or was he always going to? The story never gives a clear answer, and that's intentional. Because the question Attack on Titan is asking isn't, does free will exist? It's, if you believe you're destined to do something terrible, are you still responsible for doing it? And Eren's answer, though he never says it explicitly, seems to be, yes. In the end, Eren achieves a version of what he wanted. He doesn't complete the rumbling, his friends stop him before he can kill everyone, but he kills enough, 80% of humanity, that the remaining world no longer has the power to threaten Paradise Island for generations. His friends become heroes. Paradise gains time to develop. The cycle of hatred is not broken, exactly, but delayed. But the cost? Eren dies, killed by Mikasa, the person who loved him most. Billions of innocent people die, trampled beneath titans for the crime of being born on the wrong side of a conflict they didn't start. Eren's friends are traumatized forever, forced to kill the person they grew up with, the person they tried desperately to save, and perhaps most tragically, the cycle eventually continues anyway. The final pages of the Attack on Titan show that centuries later, war returns to Paradise Island. The cycle of violence that Eren tried to end through overwhelming force simply repeats in a new form. Freedom, it turns out, cannot be achieved through domination. So here's the question Attack on Titan forces us to confront. Was Eren right? And the answer is no. But no, genocide is not justifiable. No, Killing billions of innocent people to protect your own is not morally acceptable. No, Eren's actions do not represent a viable philosophy for how to live in a complex world with competing interests. But Eren's desperation was real. The threat to his people was real. The lack of alternatives was real. If you were in Eren's position, if you knew that everyone you love would be exterminated unless you committed an atrocity, what would you do? This is the genius of Attack on Titan. It doesn't give you an easy answer. It shows you a protagonist who starts as a hero, becomes a villain, and ends as something more complicated than either label can capture. Eren is a cautionary tale. He's a warning about what happens when the pursuit of freedom becomes absolutist, when you refuse to compromise, refuse to coexist, refuse to accept any limitation on your autonomy. Because absolute freedom, freedom without responsibility, freedom without restraint, freedom without regard for others, isn't freedom at all. It's tyranny. Attack on Titan is, at its core, a tragedy. Not the tragedy of a good person who makes one mistake, but the tragedy of someone who was born into impossible circumstances and chose the worst possible response. Eren didn't ask to be born into a world where his people were hated. He didn't ask for the Attack Titan's power. He didn't ask to see a future he couldn't change, but he still chose, and he chose genocide. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre said, "Man is condemned to be free." What he meant is that we can't escape the burden of choice, even when circumstances are terrible, even when all options are bad, even when we feel like we have no choice, we still choose, and we are responsible for that choice. Eren tried to escape this responsibility by claiming he had to do what he did, that it was destiny, that he didn't know why. But the story rejects this. Eren's friends hold him accountable. The narrative shows the horror of his actions, and Eren himself in his final moments admits, "I wanted to." He wanted to flatten the earth. He wanted absolute freedom. He wanted a world where no one could ever threaten him or his loved ones again, and wanting something doesn't make it right. If someone tries to take my freedom away, I won't hesitate to take theirs. These words, spoken by a young Eren Yeager, define his entire philosophy. But by the end of his story, we understand what they truly mean. A philosophy of preemptive domination, a rejection of coexistence, a belief that freedom is a zero-sum game where someone must lose for you to win. And this belief led Eren to commit the greatest atrocity in human history. Not because he was evil, not because he was insane, but because he believed he was free. This is the final, devastating irony of Eren Yeager. In his obsession with breaking free from cages, he built the ultimate cage around himself, a cage made of his own ideology, his own certainty, his own refusal to imagine any other way. He became what he hated. A force that denies freedom to others, and in the end, the only way to stop him was for the people who loved him most to take his freedom away, permanently. Eren Yeager's story is not a celebration of freedom. It's a meditation on its cost, its limits, and the danger of pursuing it without wisdom, without compassion, without restraint. Because freedom without responsibility is just another word for destruction. That's the philosophy of Eren Yeager. A boy who sought freedom, gained the power to achieve it, and discovered that absolute freedom is indistinguishable from absolute tyranny. If you've ever struggled with questions of freedom versus responsibility, choice versus destiny, or what you would do in an impossible situation, Eren's story is for you. Not because it provides answers, but because it forces you to confront the hardest questions. If this made you think, share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in Eren's position? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep dives into anime philosophy. Until next time, stay free. But remember, freedom means nothing if you're the only one who has it.